Okay, so this little short video is a very, very brief discussion of what nationalism is. Now, many books have been written on this subject, so I'm just not going to be able to do it justice in 5 minutes, but here goes. Okay, the most important theorist of nationalism, Benedict Anderson, refers to nationalism and nations as being what he calls imagined communities. Now, what does he mean? How can you imagine a community? Well, if you think of yourself as being British or Dutch or Irish or German, the idea that you can ever meet any more than a tiny fraction of that rest of that national tribe to which you believe you belong is a fantasy, isn't it? It's not possible. So that means that this community to which we believe ourselves to belong, we have to imagine it. We have to essentially imagine what it is we think other British people are like. Now, fortunately, here in the 21st century, we've got the internet and television and radio and all these other means to help us. And media, if you think about 21st century media, or if you go back to the 19th century and think about journals and newspapers and the penny press, these were essential methods of creating this imagined community. In fact, imagined communities, nations can't really exist without mass communication. And one of the reasons why nations and nationalisms emerge is because of mass communication, mass literacy and mass printing. So yes, one has to imagine the rest of the community, and one has to imagine what the community has been in the past. So one has to understand its history, so the history of Britain or Germany, and one has to be able to take that history and take it into the present and project it into the future. And it works kind of like this. So nations are very modern things, and nationalism is a very modern idea, but it relies on a very long story. Italian nationalism in the 19th century and 20th century relied on memories of ancient Rome. German nationalism relied on a kind of medieval romanticism, thinking about the Teutonic Knights and that kind of thing. British nationalism is based on memories of the British Empire, but it's also really an English nationalism. So things like the Middle Ages and Agincourt and the kind of supposed great triumphs of English kings in the Middle Ages, going all the way back to Magna Carta. These are some of the foundation stones of a British nationalism, which is normally imposed on the Scottish, the Irish, and the Welsh. So, in order to understand, the nationalism says basically, in order to understand what this nation is about, this national tribe is about, we need to understand the long story, and then that will help make sense of the nation in the present, and it'll give us direction for the future. Nationalism can be highly authoritarian, though initially it wasn't. In the 19th century, around the time of the 1848 revolutions, nationalism is quite liberal. There are nationalists who believe that the state should have a limited role in the lives of individuals. There were nationalists that thought the way in which you create that is you have a constitution, okay? So you have a set of rules on how society should work. Now, how do you have a constitution that can govern all Italians, or all Germans, or all Frenchmen? Well, it means you have to have one unified nation ruled by one constitution. Therefore, the goal of liberalism and the goal of nationalism intersected temporarily. Later on in the 19th century, nationalism would not be quite so liberal in much of Europe, and in much of the world now it's certainly quite a violent and regressive force, as we're seeing. Anyway, I hope that clears up some things, and maybe it poses more questions than it answers. But put your comments in down below, and let's get the conversation going, and catch me on the next video. Thanks very much. Bye bye.